Hey everyone, my name's Alex Fleming and this is our 2004 V8 Toyota 4Runner that we race in Ultra 4. We are going to show you guys our full setup for the 2023 season. We're also going to be racing it in a few other series, but we have a bunch of new parts, a new look, and we're really excited to show you guys. So we've been racing this truck for a little over 3 years now. We've changed a lot throughout those 3 years, but I'm going to go through everything that's kind of stuck around and then some of the new parts we're running this season. So up front, we're going to start with the bumper, winch, light setup. This is a Addicted off-road hybrid bumper. Great bumper. We've been running this since the very beginning and it's taken an absolute beating. We do have it tied into our engine cage, which gives it a lot more rigidity than just going off those factory frame mounts. We have a Warn Xeon 10S Platinum winch in there. That thing is an absolute beast. It's a super fast winch. And then we're also tying it in with the Factor 55 Fairlead and their Ultra Hook. This is incredibly helpful for a lot of the winching and stuff that we do in this style racing. And then for some light, we have two LP9 Pros from Baja Designs. These things are beasts of light. They put out a ton of light and we love the amber. Not only is the amber light really helpful in the dust, but it also just looks really nice and matches the car super well. Down here, you'll notice a custom skid plate. This is just an aluminum skid plate with UHMW plastic on it to make it easy for sliding through the rocks and also protecting everything underneath. We also have a lot of reinforcements to the frame down here just to beef everything up so we can take really hard impacts into the rocks, and it allows us to run a thinner aluminum skid plate like this without it getting up into all the vitals down there. Something that a lot of you guys will appreciate is the suspension that we are running. This is the Marlin Crawler RCLT HD 3.5 inch wide kit. It's running 3.5 inch wider CV axles. These CV axles are built by CVJ Axles in Denver, Colorado. And then for shocks, we are running Icon's CDEV suspension system, 8-inch coilover up here, and then we also have a 2x2 hydraulic bump stop behind it, and then a limit strap setup. These are on a custom shock hoop that allows us to run the coilover a little bit higher than the factory location, which gives us a little bit of redundancy. So if our limit strap fails, the coilover will actually top out before our CV binds. So we've had issues with our limit straps failing in the past, and that's the only thing that's saving that CV from binding. So this was a good way to get ourselves a little bit of that safety factor. This Icon suspension is actually our third suspension system in this truck. We just switched over to it this year, and based off a little bit of the testing we've already done with this setup, which so far has been pretty minimal, we're really happy with how it's performing and excited to do a lot more tuning throughout the next couple weeks with Icon's engineers out here on the lake bed. As far as the front drivetrain goes, we are running a factory Toyota 8-inch clamshell. It has an ARB locker and we're running Yukon 529 gears. It's held up really well for us. We've obviously blown it a few times, but with the most recent setup, it's been a pretty reliable setup and working a lot better than we ever anticipated the factory 8-inch to hold up in Ultra 4 stresses. As far as brakes go up front, we are running the factory calipers, and then we are running R1 Concepts rotors and pads. These have been working really good for us. We've always had conversations of upgrading our brakes to a bigger caliper setup, but honestly, these just do really well, and we've been really pleased with it, and it allows us to have easily accessible replacement parts. We could run to Napa and buy a new caliper if we have an issue with ours. We can always go backwards and just go to an OEM style pad and rotor if we need to. So really pleased with this setup. These brakes have been really good for us up here. Something else you'll probably notice if you've been following us for a while is we are running a new wheel and tire combo this year. This is the Raceline Rhino beadlock. Pretty killer looking wheel if you ask my opinion, and I'm really excited to be running the Raceline technology. And then we're also now running Kenda tires. These are the Cleaver RTs in a 35, 12, 5, 17, and we're also going to be doing some testing this week on their new MT2. So really excited to put these through their paces. I've been running them on personal vehicles for a while now and really pleased with their performance. So we'll see how they hold up to race pace and bashing through some rocks at a little bit higher speeds. So our rear suspension is a custom triangulated 4-link. We built that 2 years ago now, and it's been working really well. We had to beef up some mounts along the way, but really pleased with the geometry that we set up. And then we're also running an outboarded 12-inch smooth body shock on the outside here, and no rear sway bar. We've found that with these really vertical shock setup being pretty far out on the axles, it rides rather well, and it has pretty good body roll compliance. Maybe down the road we'll add a sway bar, but for now, keeping it simple and not running a bunch of stuff packaged back there has been pretty nice to have. We're also running Dobinson coils in the rear. These are their coils out of the 80 series Land Cruiser 4-inch kit, the rear coils. So they're a really big, long, kind of progressive coil, and it allows us to run a lot of articulation, keep the ride height where we need it to have the ground clearance in the rocks out here, and it just does really well in the desert as well. It's a pretty smooth coil. So back here you'll see we have a pretty beefy axle setup. This is a Trail Gear Ford 9-inch fabbed housing. We've had this now in the car for, this is our 3rd year running it, and just recently we upgraded some of the components on it. We used to be running all Trail Gear stuff, their hubs, their axle shafts, but we upgraded the hubs to the Spider Trax 35 spline Ultimate unit bearings, and then we also upgraded the axle shafts to their axle shafts as well. Very similar brake setup. We're now running their rotors and hats, but this axle has held up really well. The 35 spline's plenty of strength for this motor, and we've just been really pleased with it overall. The only downside to running a bigger axle like this in our class is you just lose a little bit of that ground clearance with the bigger pumpkin, but at the end of the day, you can't beat the strength and the reliability out of these things. So really pleased with how this has been performing for us. So something that's pretty notable on this car is the interior is vastly different from a normal 4th gen 4Runner. This is a full custom dash that we built that's catered to our needs as far as switch placement and the things that we just need to see while we're racing. We have PRP Alpha race seats in here, PRP steering wheel with the quick disconnect, and then we're also, we have a full custom 2-inch roll cage in here. And safety is a really big thing for us, so we've spent a lot of time making sure that everything in here is pretty dialed. One thing we'd love to add in the future is a fire suppression system, just because that's something that can make a really big difference if it ever comes worse come to worse. But we're running S-Pod switches in here. This is a new upgrade this season. We used to be running a full rocker switch panel, which was nice, but you end up with a lot of relays and some crazy messy wiring, where the S-Pod system just makes it incredibly simple to keep everything neat and tidy and easily serviceable. So really excited about that. It also allows us to run like redundancies of like being able to switch things on. We're going to have another switch panel here that is a mirror of the co-driver switch panel. So say the co-driver's out of the car, any of those switches are still accessible by the driver without having to wire a bunch of extra stuff. You basically just plug the module in, which is super cool. We have 2 Lowrance GPSs as our main GPS units, and then we're also running lead nav this year on the iPad, which is pretty exciting. You have a lot of ability to do really easy notes with pre-running, and then you can also do audio call-outs plugged into your intercom system, so the co-driver doesn't even necessarily have to be telling you about the things that are coming up on the GPS, and they can be focused on some of the more specific nuances that you're going to be running into on the course. So really excited to test that out. You also notice we have extinguishers throughout in case of fires. We have an air pumper that we run into our helmets to give us fresh air and keep air circulating in there so your visor isn't fogging up. And then we also have a full intercom system, so that allows the driver and co-driver to communicate regardless of how loud it is outside, how fast you're going. It's pretty loud in here without any of that because you have no windshield. And if you've ever ridden a dirt bike or a motorcycle over 65, 70 miles an hour, you know it's pretty noisy. So super helpful stuff. If you're looking down here at our shifter, you'll notice that we have a J-shift transfer case in here. We've talked about doing a twin stick setup, but this is just the FJ Cruiser part-time T-case that is a pretty common swap for these trucks. It's really nice to get rid of that electronic actuator. And if you do it correctly, you can basically get all the computers functioning just fine, get your lights to work on your dash, and it's not too big of a project. Back here we have a Rome Adventure Co case. This is what we pack all our tools and spare parts into. Easy to organize and super nice. We sell those on our website if you're interested in picking one of those up, but we just mounted it to some steel back here and it's been great for us. We also run our battery back here relocated from the front. This is the first time we've done that. The last 3 years of racing we have had it up in the front and we've been fighting the sheet metal just trying to disintegrate up there. So it's nice to have it hard mounted back here, encased in some strong steel, so it's not going to be an issue moving forward. And it's just nice to have this weight off the front end as well. It makes the front suspension not have to work as hard because batteries are heavy. We also have this is our firewall here. This just protects us from the fuel if it ever was to splash out of the fuel cell, or if the fuel cell was to become dislodged or anything like that. This is just a little bit of a safety factor here. You can see all of our beautiful, neat wiring that Mitchell at Blaze Off-Road did with our new relocated battery setup. It's just crazy neat, easy to work around. It's all double insulated wire with sheathing over it, so it's incredibly durable. So it's really nice, especially in a racing aspect of, I mean, when we load this car up to go out to races, the back of the car can get filled up with jack stands and pit supplies and stuff, and having this all protected is really nice. And then also protection from water, being double insulated and everything. We're just not going to have as many issues with things shorting out. Hopefully none at all, but really excited to have this all high quality, safe, and dialed in this year. So back here, you'll notice we don't really have a hatch anymore. We just have this top section of it to technically be a half door. And we run our spare hung out past the bumper a little bit, strapped in with this Max Y strap. We have a small power tank back here, so we have some onboard air. We actually run this on a high flow regulator that'll go up to 400 PSI. And then we pair this with this Pro Eagle air jack. So instead of carrying around, we've carried around the full Pro Eagle Kratos in the past couple years, and it's just a really big, heavy jack. It rattles a little bit and makes some noise. So we're excited to go down to something incredibly simple and plenty sufficient for our needs out there, changing a tire or working on the car, whatever the case may be. We also have a 23-gallon fuel cell in front of this spare tire, and that's just a pretty good amount of fuel for the racing that we do. It allows us out here to run our desert lap, splash fuel, and go out into the rocks and only have to worry about fueling once. The car still manages to be relatively fuel efficient during races. Some of the smoother, really fast ones, we get pretty bad gas mileage just because we're wide open a lot. But out here, we're only averaging 30, 35 in the desert. So there's a good bit of coasting, and I would say we're going to get like 8 miles per gallon on our desert lap, and then probably around like 6 in the rock. So plenty of fuel for our needs. Maybe once we get into some longer form racing, we might upgrade that to like a 30 or 35 gallon fuel cell. So you'll also notice back here we have these S2 Pros as some chase lights, and then we also have the RTL up here as well. So lots of light back here between the tail lights and these two, which is nice for people coming up on you in the dust, whatever it may be. And BD just makes some of the best stuff, so stoked to be running those back here as well. Up front, you'll notice that we have the ADV fiberglass. Really nice glass. We love the body lines of it. The shape looks really good, so excited to be running these this year. And you'll also notice that we have a brand new wrap this year, probably the most anticipated part of the beginning of each season for us now that we've been changing it up. This year we work with Pure Blind Wraps in Denver, Colorado, and we are pumped on how it came out. We wanted to do something a little bit different than our normal stuff, and we basically told Nick to just kind of run with it and give us his ideas, and he came up with this idea of the 4Runner. So really excited how it came out. It's pretty cool to have some artistic design going on with the wrap as far as some graphics. So really pumped on that. All right, last but not least, we have the Sherpa Equipment Company Princeton roof rack. We've been running this rack on this truck since the very beginning. It's been kind of like our testing bed, and we've been absolutely stoked on how it's held up to all the abuse we've put it through. We've even ran a race with a rooftop tent on this thing. And then we have the Baja Designs XL80 linkable kit up here. A ton of light up high if you ever need it. Right now we just have some covers on it, but it's been awesome. So one thing for you guys that we're trying to give back a little bit who are enjoying the race team, if you use the code Motorsports on our website, it'll save you 7% off any of our products on there. So go over there, check it out. If there's anything you need, be sure to use that code. Thank you guys for watching. If it's your first time checking out the truck and seeing any of this, be sure to go follow us on Instagram at Sherpa Motorsports. If you want to follow the business side with the roof racks, at Sherpa EC on Instagram. We're going to be cranking out a bunch more content while we're out here at King of the Hammers. So make sure to watch the build series leading up to us coming out here, and then the episodes that we're going to be putting out while we're out here. We're going to try and crank out a bunch And then at the end, we want to do a full recap video. So stay tuned, follow along the rest of the season, and thanks for checking in. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, if you have any questions about the truck, comment them below. We want to hear any of your guys' questions. We're going to do our best to respond to them. It might be hard for us while we're here, but we're definitely going to get to them. So comment below. Thanks, guys.